Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about coaching. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, if a candidate at a senior or staff level needs coaching, doesn't that reflect poorly on the software engineering hiring process of the company? Uh, Depends on the sort of coaching, I suppose. So yes and no. It's uh, it's very common, I would say, that practically everybody needs an onboarding process of some sort into like a new system or a new company if it's like a complicated domain or something like that, where you, even if you've worked for years, you don't really know. Like the system is too big for you to just sit down and then read the source code and then be up and running in a few days. So you might need someone to quote unquote coach you a little bit there and sort of walk you through how everything works and so forth. Uh, it's another matter if it's things that you're basically supposed to be able to do, like suppose things that you should know. And this is it's very very common, and I see it quite a bit where this idea that people have where senior, as I like to say, the real seniors usually don't have this issue, but the ones that I usually interview and so forth, uh, this is a major issue, and it is a testament to a shitty hiring process usually. And the manifestation of it is usually that you get a really shitty system. And considering how many shitty systems you have around, you can probably imagine how many shitty seniors you have walking around. And the reality is that this is so common, in fact, that you will see it in practically every company to one degree or another, unless you have a really good hiring process. And most companies don't have a really good hiring process. Just the other day I was talking to a manager where we were interviewing an individual who had like, oh, his, as he was saying, oh, his CV is great. He's been like running his own company. He's been doing this and that and so forth. And I go, yeah, in my experience, usually the people who run their own startups and so forth, this is going to be, and I knew this even before I talked to him. He's going to most likely be a self-taught software developer. He's basically hacked together some basic like a mobile application or something like that with tools that he googled to understand and Stack Overflow as much as possible. He's probably not going to have any in-depth knowledge about software development whatsoever. He's going to have zero knowledge of anything related to computer science or object-oriented programming or any of the more advanced concepts, and he's going to be pretty much only at a bootcamp level understanding of most things that he has been using. He's not going to have a range. Usually he's going to be very very light on any technical details. We do the interview and I am 100% correct in my assessment, and so the manager says like, how is this possible? And he said the reason behind that this is happening is because, as I've said many times before, you don't actually have to be any good at software development to get 11 years of work experience, because it's down to what do you do within the industry. You can put anything on your CV and it's technically true. It is true, but that doesn't mean that you are a qualitative software developer. This guy could not actually set up, I mean, even setting up a project from scratch is something that he wasn't all that familiar with. He could not actually start a new project or anything like that. He could not answer any questions about how to do this. And so this sort of coaching is necessary in some cases, but it's, as I said, it is a testament to that you have a poor hiring process. It's not necessarily always the case. It's also a case of, well, who do you have in the pipeline? Because in this specific instance, I told the manager that because I've been helping this manager out for a while now going through like literally, and this is sort of the false, this is why I argue that a technical expert has to help out here, because the managers, they don't know fuck about this stuff. And so because this guy had been like sending like CV after CV after CV, and he said, oh, I only need someone who sort of knows like this and that, like I got an estimate of roughly the sort of person he needs. And this guy was sitting with me in the interviews, and I said, and he started seeing what I'm telling him. When you are hiring software engineers, the norm is that most of them suck. If you're looking for someone who knows, like, and I'm not talking now just like a master level developer. We're talking someone who actually knows how to run an entire project. Someone who this person in this case can put in charge of a team and be sure that the results are going to be there and it's going to be done with testing and like all the quality checks and so forth. You are basically looking for you're looking for what I call a true senior level software developer, because the average software developers, they have tons of holes in their knowledge, to the point where it's difficult to find someone who actually knows all the things that they will need to know. And so if you don't have a good hiring process, this is what's going to make up the vast majority of your company. It is, and it's going to show. And if you take a look at how many companies in IT are struggling with legacy code and issues and so forth, you should probably see a pattern. This is the norm. So if you have a staff level engineer or a senior level engineer, like these really, really high up levels, I'll make a slight footnote on the staff engineering level, but like, you guys, senior means nothing. It really does mean nothing today. It's up to whoever makes the assessment to say what's senior, what's not senior. I usually make the measurement different from other people, because I don't care how many years you've worked. I care about what you're going to produce. And if you can't answer basic questions related to your field, or I can ask about your experiences working within the industry, and you can't give me any meaningful experiences where you've actually done anything where like literally you are sort of in charge of making things happen and so forth, then from my perspective, that's not a good hire. Because when you're hiring a senior, it's going to be really weird if that senior doesn't really know how to do things and needs other seniors to help them out with the basics, like setting up the project, writing unit tests, doing that in a correct fashion, etc., etc. So the staff level engineer, it's also an interesting area, because in some cases you might need coaching at that level as well. It's less the case because it's difficult to tell what coaching does a staff engineer actually need, because the role of a staff engineer can be like basically that's a norm role. Actually, it's a facility from what I can see, because it's a term that I've been given as well. For most that have this role, it's just a role. It's a role that means you have a lot of experience in something, and you basically bring that experience to the table. And it's really, really, for me, just another flavor of being you're an individual who facilitates more than you do other things. I don't think that that's always the case, but that's what I've seen on average. So giving them coaching would be similar. Then why would you hire this individual? Because you're usually hiring an individual like this because they're an expert in something, or they're extremely good at some specific thing that you are looking for. Sure, you might need to coach them in something that they may not be so good with, but at some level it gets to the point where you're sort of responsible yourself for educating, like for getting yourself educated on at least the basics of how the company works and so forth. So what I want you to take away from this is that I would say that it does reflect poorly if to a certain degree, depending on what is needed, because as I've said before, guys, just because you are an experienced software developer, that doesn't mean that you don't need help. Everybody needs help when they usually, at the very least, when they start a new company, depending on the complexity of the project, of course, to just know how to set everything up and like how the domain works and so forth and so forth. But if you, on the other hand, have a quote-unquote senior level software developer, staff engineer, who can't really even figure out the basics, who like need help in the same manner, a mid-level or like a junior level-ish software developer needs help, well, then you don't really have one of those individuals who really know their stuff. What you have is an individual who is close enough. And that's what most companies are getting today. They're either getting really, really shitty software developers or people who are close enough. And the close enough guys is in many cases the only option available to a lot of companies, either because they don't know any better or because it's difficult to find someone who actually does have real quality work experience and skill. I can tell you that most companies don't have like either the luck or the time or resources and so forth to find these sorts of individuals, because like it's always a time value type of thing, right? How long are you going to wait for like the best of the best? Well, if you have all the people on hand that you need and you're trying to expand, well, how long are you going to wait? Because the engineering manager from my little story here, he thought he was going to find some really, really good software developers in 5, 6, 10 interviews, and I go, no, you're not. If you're hiring from the entire across the range, you're never going to find that. If you cap your quote criteria at least 8 years of experience minimum for like quality, in this case it was front end, I can guarantee you that you're far from having a guarantee that the first 10 candidates are going to be quality software developers. Because as I've said before guys, the years matter very little, because you can collect the years by pretty much not learning much about your field, pretty much just doing like the thing that makes the thing work. Because getting software to work, to do something, even though it's absolute shit and it's going to cause a lot of problems, is easier than doing things well. Have a great day.